Good. This is part of Hank and Jerry's adventures, and today I think we focus on Upkido and what to do about it. So go ahead. You were just
Yeah,
explaining some of what you put into our shared document.
yeah, exactly. I got this idea that co-creating a kind of pattern language not based on actual patterns, although there should be actual patterns in it, but based on speculative patterns, stories about what the world could be like if some of those ideas from the indigenous wisdom or Eleanor Ostrom or Donella Meadows, and there are a lot more, of course, Jane Jacobs, whatever. Lots of people have really good ideas, which only partially get enacted. And suppose through your idea of nuggetizing stories and shorts, there was a kind of prototype pattern language. And if you think about any of the Eleanor Ostrom or Donella Meadows principles, there must be dozens of smaller examples where they have been put into practice and have worked. And if you connect it going a bit deeper in history, uh, you can probably find enough examples to distill patterns out of it and combine the patterns which in a sort of speculative what if world match with what has actually happened in different parts of the world in history. They could be quite compelling stories.
Definitely. Here's my collection of actual pattern languages, and I'll do a little screen share.
Yeah,
Same. So here's what I've found so far. All I've got.
yeah,
Including Tom Atlee's Wise Democracy Pattern Language,
yeah,
including Liberating Structures, which is here, but some people say really isn't a pattern language as much as a list of facilitation techniques. And then
yeah,
I think a piece of what we should do is talk about, is pattern language the right frame here? Because I attended a workshop on writing pattern languages. And it was interesting, but I will be honest and say I've never really written a pattern language. So here's writing patterns, and then here's the pattern mining. Here's was it this?
yeah.
Yes, pretty sure it was this. Yeah,
Do you have liberating voices on your list?
liberating voices or liberating structures.
Liberating voices.
I don't know.
Now, I just show you the big thick book.
Here, liberating voices, a pattern language for the communication revolution. I
Yes,
do, and it is under. It's the Public
exactly.
Sphere project, and it's under actual pattern languages.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's Bolyer's pattern for the commons. Oh, cool.
Ah, that's interesting. Oh, I'd
And
like to.
I haven't looked into this very much at all, so I should do that. But Doug Schuler
Yeah,
apparently is the guy doing this. Oh,
yeah,
interesting. And that's spun out of CPSR. Who knew?
yeah. I That's an extremely inspiring pattern
Ah,
language.
cool.
Yeah,
Love that.
but I'd love to see material on Boller's patterns for the pattern
Well,
for the common.
let's follow that to the web and see if the link
Yeah,
still lives. The Commons, Bollier, author. So the URL has changed, but it looks like it's still there. Let me paste this into the chat.
yeah, great.
And then change the URL in my brain.
And speaking of
Upkido.
changing URLs, the links for design from trust don't work.
Oh, shoot! I haven't fixed that. What am I doing here? I just went to the wrong place somehow. Oh, I'm in the Zoom workplace editing something, and I don't want to be doing that. Uh, get rid of this. Okay, here, all paste. Good. Now I'm doing what I thought I was doing. I think I was going to go to Squarespace and try to fix them. So Design from Trust works if you put the HTTPS and the www in, but
Ah,
it's not aliasing properly to that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I didn't try that. Yeah,
So here's Design from Trust. Let me just see what the URL is in my brain. So I've got the S and the W. So if I click
yeah.
on this, it should go to the right website and it should show up. Yes.
Yes.
So that
Okay.
works. But if you miss the S and the W's, it doesn't work, which I tried logging into Squarespace and it gave me an error just logging in, and I sort of gave up there because something else distracted me. But I must fix this.
Okay, good, 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 good.
Good. I'll make myself a note.
Well, I agree with you. What I'm suggesting is not exactly a pattern language, but it's a kind of pattern language. And before I forget, best greetings from Jenny Quillian.
Oh, cool.
She is one of the acknowledged experts in Alexander's work, and I spent all afternoon with her talking about crazy things to improve the world. And I showed her a version of the document that I put online. She did suggest immediately that probably a pattern language for peace will be very, very difficult. And
Hmm.
I explained to her that I thought that was a catchy alliteration, but that probably if we did something with that, it'd have to have another name. And she said she'd be willing if we made a number of prototypes in something like that. She'd be willing
Hmm.
to kind of proofread for us and say, "Oh, I think you put the cart before the horse," or turn it around, use a different photo, etc., etc.
Interesting. Um, I did a little bit more work on just explaining Upkido and thinking about how Upkido links to things and realizing that it kind of needs to point to a bunch of other substantial pieces of work. So, for example, Upkido principles probably draw on the design from trust principles that we went through on our last call on Tuesday,
Yep,
because that's a very nice starting point of principles. And I was sitting thinking, okay, do all of these apply to Upketo? I think yes, but that was a good thought because I don't want to just pour the kitchen sink into Upketo. I want to make
yep,
it very light and accessible.
yep,
So then the idea of building one or several intertwingled pattern languages is interesting because they could be collective projects of anybody who's interested in Upketo.
yep.
That said, I think collectively writing a very good pattern language is very daunting.
You
Um,
you need an army to do it.
I
Absolutely.
would love to try. I'm not sure you need a quantity of humans, but I think you need a few people who are like grooving together so well
Yeah,
that what they generate seems like the same person wrote it in different places. And I
yeah.
think that's very hard to come by. Um,
I did co-write a prototype pattern language back in 2010 or 2011 for a ministry here in the Netherlands.
mhm.
And the intention, we with two colleagues, and it's in Dutch, so I mean, I could send it to you, but don't know if you'd
Like Google Translate would
got it.
automatically offer to translate the page, so that would work fine if you want to.
Yeah, I'll do that after the
Yeah.
call. So what we did is identify a whole lot of potential patterns. We worked out about a dozen of them, and we were discussing with the ministry the possibility of an assignment to create a much more extensive pattern language, making use of graduate students, undergraduate students who would all go out with their smartphone cameras. And yeah, I forgot to say, it was a pattern language about sustainable rural development.
Cool.
So the idea was to get 30 or 40 university or postgraduate students involved in it, going out into the rural countryside, thinking of the idea of the patterns we had suggested. If they see something that reminds them of it, take the photos. And if they see something completely different than we had seen, take the photos and then pool them. And well, there were a number of political issues, and we never got financing for it. And then the ministry got caught up into two or three different other ministries, and typical way things happened here in
That's too
the
bad.
2010s. So I know how extensive a bit of work it actually is, but it's a
Hmm.
lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Sorry about that. Um, I'm also thinking we had talked last time about the need for a lot of stories,
yeah,
a lot of which I will here call case studies or examples. And to me, there's a difference between stories and patterns. And patterns are generalizable,
yeah,
useful methods, truths, whatever that bubble
yeah,
out of stories. And I think keeping the distinction is interesting and important, so that a good pattern language might, in fact, each pattern might point to several different case studies that illustrate a pattern really well, that are great ways to learn about and tell the story of the pattern, but they're not the same things. And I
yeah,
think that's part of the problem with liberating structures, is that it was facilitation techniques, but not bubbled up into a pattern language. And I like that. I'm very interested in that. And so
yeah,
when I did the principles for design from trust, I was trying very, very hard to keep the list short, but make them very patterny things, you know? So, yeah, it's, prefaces, there we go, principles of design from trust. For example, um, assume good faith is just the starting point. Um, is one of those kinds of things. It's kind of distilled wisdom. The opposite is true for a lot of people in the world. A lot of people assume the worst, and often they get the worst because it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy very often,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
which is part of the text of why assume good intent is a really good place to start. And then you would connect assume good intent to be undefended, not defenseless, which is number two in the list. And you would do that because this is not about naive trust. And I think that's another one here. Did I have not? Yes, not naive trust is also one of my principles of design from trust. And these three, assume good faith, be undefended, and not naive, work very nicely together because they answer questions that each of them raises in some sense. And I think they're separate. I don't know. And here I am not an experienced pattern writer, so I don't know if I'm on the right trail or off the trail. But that feels right. It feels like those things are complementary and connected, and the pattern language should reflect those connections, um, but they can be written about separately.
yeah. I think feeling intuition, gut feeling intuition is very important in looking for and recognizing patterns. And they all can be individually described, including the links. Well, that's what Alexander also does, of course. He
Yeah.
says, when you read this pattern, it is connected to, and then he gives a number of links. And I would say it shouldn't be our job to be purists in this,
Hmm. Hmm.
but to create stories which live on. And I had this conversation with Jenny this afternoon
Hmm.
about a story doesn't have to be true to have it live on for many years. And she came up with two examples, Paul Bunyan and Davy Crockett. I
Right.
I countered with Johnny Appleseed. Now I don't know if those three characters, real or mythic, still resonate with young people in America. But up until a few years ago, everyone in America knew who they were.
At this
Whether
point,
they,
at this point, I wonder whether young people know who they are at all.
yeah,
That's interesting, and I think it's important to seize on things that people are familiar with. Our friend Jay Golden talks about retellable stories, a term
Yeah,
I very much like.
yeah,
It just means something that was useful and memorable enough that you can and simple enough that you can tell someone else about it,
yeah,
and that's
exactly.
and that's how they live on. So
And
for me, the case studies should be retellable stories.
yes,
That's what I want. I want the case
yeah,
study to be short and nice enough, crystalline enough that you would happily forward it to somebody else and go, here, look at this. But also you could maybe if you were just sitting having a drink with someone, you could retell what's in the case study.
yeah, exactly. And to take it another step, um, people in the 60s thought how many were there? 30 episodes of Star Trek were
Hmm.
really good. But 60 years, 60 odd years later, people are still making up stories about Star Trek and the people, the characters in Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
Aside from people getting dressed up and into their favorite Star Trek characters, Star Trek stories inspired dozens of innovators and engineers to actually create quite a lot of the futuristic artifacts. And I'm thinking of our one what if story idea as that type of thing that's stimulating enough and sticky enough.
Hmm.
You take it away and you retell it, but after retelling it 3 or 4 times, you add your own things and make it your own, and then retell it as if it's your own story. And in such a way, it can inspire lots of people.
Yeah. Um, I think there's an interesting differentiation here between case studies, which you want to be as rooted in fact as possible, so that
Yeah,
they're not mythological or fantastical or fictitious. They're as real to life as possible, with which you want to build, hey, here's how you could try doing this as well. And
yeah,
then separate from that, retellable stories that are in fact mythological, folk stories, um, but that paint a desirable future, or whatever else. And so Kevin Jones on Thursday's OGM call, he brought up Ursula Le Guin's Hamish cycle, which I have not read. And
I
Ursula Le
haven't.
Guin came from Portland. She was one of Portland's most famous writers. And I attended an event at the Portland Art Museum after she died. They had kind of a celebration of her life, and one of her kids was there, and a couple of biographers were there, I think. It was very interesting. And I was like, damn, I should have paid more attention to Ursula, but I'm afraid I've not read her work. But I'm saying all of this because she was one of the people who was doing very successful world building of an aspirational kind. She was looking at issues like gender. She was looking at issues like the oppression of people who don't get to say it, a seat at the table. And then she was building worlds that played that out. But once we get into those waters, the waters get deep very quickly, and it gets very ambitious very quickly. So partly to say, a counterexample perhaps is Ayn Rand and The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged,
Mm,
which
yeah,
all libertarians think actually was fact. Like they'll
yeah,
you know they'll quote John Galt or whoever as if they were real characters, and cite the behaviors in those books as if that's what people would normally do in a situation. I'm like, yeah, no, that's actually called fiction. And so sometimes there's aspirational fiction that really works well, and sometimes there's aspirational fiction that paints a possible picture that a lot of people are willing to follow that I find really dysfunctional. And it's sometimes hard to find the difference between the two.
yeah,
And it depends possibly a lot in your political or sociological belief system.
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So wandering into folklore, folk tales, aspirational world building is good. I just don't know where it starts, stops, and where how to keep it from devolving.
I would answer that by saying keep it as light as possible. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that resonates with all the different things that you said last time and now. and making a few prototypes and testing them with people in our network
Right.
and getting some feedback from other people.
Right. One of my other theories is that at some point many years ago, I came up with the idea of the marginalization of the divine feminine that started from my research into the word consumer and the consumerization of our world and all that. And I got there. Then, in short order, I read both Leonard Schlehn's book, The Alphabet versus the Goddess, where this is a big plot point, and also the Da Vinci Code where this is a
Uh-huh.
plot point. Like
Yeah, yeah,
three quarters into the Da Vinci Code, apparently it's a plot point given to him by his wife Sherry, which I read somewhere, and I've never fact checked. But I thought, okay, my little light bulb moment was understood by me and God, maybe two people I've talked about with it. Leonard Schlehn's book might have been read by a couple 10,000, maybe a couple 100,000 people, and they might have remembered it. But oh my God, Dan Brown's Pot Boiler touched a whole lot of people, although Schlane is writing nonfiction and Brown is writing fiction. So when you read fiction, you take it all with that, oh, this is just fiction kind of dash of salt,
yeah.
but not always, because sometimes we
Not
confuse
always.
fiction for reality, right?
Yeah,
But all of that to say that sometimes fiction, good fiction, which is hard, is one of the best transmission mechanisms for a worldview you'd like to have, which I think describes a lot of the work you've been doing for 30, 40 years,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Trying to figure out how do we get good stories about desirable futures propagated like seeds on the wind.
Another insight, just
Take your time.
yeah. Another insight from the conversation with Jenny this afternoon was building from the Johnny Appleseed, Davy Crockett uh, personage, is that English? Uh,
Personas?
yeah, it's a Dutch word.
Yeah.
Of the character. What are or who might be the characters that inspire people in different age groups today?
Mm, yeah.
Uh, I have this thesis, probably I've talked about it with you earlier, about going back, looking at the 80s, 90s, 10s, noughts and tens. There was a generation brought up on vampire films. The next cohorts were zombies, and then started the superheroes. Superheroes are leaving us now, and what's coming next? So Jenny made a very interesting leap of thought, and
Mm,
she said, based on what she's heard among friends and what she reads online, the young, strong, feminine heroine
yeah.
is coming up.
Oh,
And
interesting.
whether that is a character in a Netflix series or Taylor Swift, or there is virtually every week 2 or 3 stories in the Dutch newspapers focusing on the role that young, strong women are starting to play in society. And if that's a good guess, that's something to test out.
Hmm.
Would we test it out with our generation and cohorts, or would we try to find people in our networks, I'll just name OGM, who have younger children or grandchildren in their teens or 20s, and who's inspiring them now? I'm sure it's not superheroes anymore.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Um, oh, so where does that take us?
Aside from the Star Trek costume balls, which I've never attended,
Right,
when
right.
Jose and I were in Dusseldorf at the beginning of June. It turned out to be the Germany-Japan Culture Day, and there were thousands of people dressed up as their favorite manga characters
Hmm.
all over the center of the city.
That's cool.
I don't know much about manga
Right.
or its characters, but they were Germans. A lot of them were young, but they were all ages who really wanted to live out as a character that they had made their own. And that's that's something that I intuitively feel the kind of shorts, the stories, or short videos or iconic images that
Hmm.
we've been talking about, they should have in some way or other that kind of stickiness, that kind of, yeah, right. I understand that. That's me.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And then about
interesting, interesting on the one hand that a lot of the manga characters seem like, to me, many of them look like the same damn thing over and over again, but they're distinctive to the audiences they're being written for, who understand their differences and can identify the characters, which is great. Um, which only means I'm old. Um, but cosplay is a really big thing, and is not always connected to LARPing. Have you read much about LARPing?
no, I haven't.
So live action role play. Uh, and the Nordic LARP is a thing. Uh, Man, so there are large groups of people who get together for role plays in the real world, where the role play is some fictitious set of rules or settings or characters or whatever, and then they go about acting as if they're in that future, and it has a huge number of fans. But It's funny. There was some article about LARPing. There was some good article that was basically that like, oh, here we go. I know what I'm thinking about. Um, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's interesting here. Adrian Hahn, a game designer, wrote a piece that I'm going to paste into the chat. I think it's this one. Yes. Titled "Oops, What ARGs Can Teach Us About QAnon." And ARGs are alternate reality games. And QAnon is probably familiar, but
Yeah,
he asked the question, is QAnon an alternate reality game? Which is kind of LARP. Um, and it's a great question because QAnon has a game master, it has clues that get dropped, it has all the signs of an ARG are there. And if you're worried about the growth of QAnon and it absorbing a lot of people into some kind of radicalized sect, if you start thinking about it as an ARG, your techniques or tactics to try to interfere with it or step into it or something else might be very different from if you think about it as a cult or as crazy people just doing something, whatever, right? So I think the framing gets very, very interesting here because QAnon, in my head, is a very highly successful
yeah,
ARG or LARP,
yeah,
highly successful. It's like apparently 25% of the US population still kind of believes in the Q stuff, right? Which is mind-boggling in some sense.
yeah, yeah,
But I think there's an opening. So the path of fiction I like partly because of my Dan Brown story. Like, look how many people heard the thesis. Partly because I think that these things, I see things like QAnon, which are on the opposite side of my fence. I'm on, I'm trying to do something different than QAnon is, but oh my God, I'd love to have that reach and energy. And then I go toward people like Hank and John Green, the Vlog brothers, who are not dealing in fiction except when they write a novel, but they're busy collecting up teens, tweens, and young people to go do good stuff. They call it nerd fighting. And
oh,
it's not fighting nerds, it's nerds fighting world suck. Have you ever heard that phrase?
no.
Oh my God, the Vlogbrothers are a font of beauty and goodness in the world. They're just phenomenal. They have SciShow and a bunch of other different shows on YouTube. They create more good media that you can absorb easily. um, their 8 minute video on gender identity is the best explanation of gender identity I've found any place. And so they're busy creating free shareable media, which is their business model. They get views, they get, paid by the engines and by YouTube and et cetera. I think they probably also have other business models, but they're trying to fix the world and they're trying to recruit young people into to be nerd fighters, and they've gotten really far with that. So that's really cool. There's also something called the Harry Potter Army, which I know very little about, but it's also an attempt to take Harry Potter fans and harness them to do some world good. My problem is I don't see the Harry Potter universe as being very good for the world. To me, the Harry Potter universe is a large pastiche of characters and stories and plot without a lot of world building that's like what you'd like to live in somehow. Or maybe I'm missing the point of Harry Potter, but I'm also like I'm not a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, but you said there was like this era when it's vampires, then it shifted to zombies. I totally agree. But I have some friends who are deep Buffy fans and who say I'm missing the point entirely. That Buffy was actually dealing with very difficult issues that young people encountered, and then dealing with it in this fictitious world of, oh, and I have to kill the vampires at the same time. So, so, uh, so I think this is very powerful territory. I don't know how equipped I am to do well in it, to build anything significant in there. But it would be fun to do something about it.
It'd be fun to do something about it. And
Yeah,
if you set the frame, other people can, who are more who are closer to the people, they can do it. But it's still your frame.
yeah, yep,
It's the same if we wanted to do a real pattern language, we would need somewhere between 8 and 15 people doing it with us. And
for sure.
in this idea, if we could present a couple of prototypes, test them out with the generations that we think we're building them for, and if they're good enough, people get interested and want to join.
Now, it occurs to us, probably you too, at this moment, that if we found the right formula of the principles that we want to foster and the kind of age groups we want to appeal to and so forth, we could feed all of this as a long prompt into Claude or ChatGPT and say, hey, generate for us, build a world that could
Yeah,
be the basis for manga, anime, books, movies, music, whatever. Build a media property
yeah,
that does this. And I'm pretty sure it would, and we could tell it, build three different flavors, just give us three choices. And I'm pretty sure it would do a fine and dandy job. And it
yeah.
would understand the mission of trying to appeal to a particular generation or to fans of a particular work or whatever, and we could fine tune it. But that could be hugely interesting, and it would give us enormous leverage because I don't think you or I are going to sit down and write a good novel about some new interesting world, but we could publish a computer generated one proudly and say, here's the starting point for a thing we want to do.
What a great idea. That's a really good idea.
We could totally do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it would take three or four iterations until we had something which we were so happy with, we really wished we had written it ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then after time, we'll forget which part we wrote, which part it wrote. Well, it'll just vanish in our heads. The boundaries will
Yeah,
be gone.
excellent idea. Wow. Getting back to the point that you were making about the difference between case studies and stories and patterns, I referenced in that piece the work of Roman Krasnarek.
Yeah,
Don't know if you've read his earlier book about being a good ancestor.
I've heard of it. It's in my brain. I've got a bunch of his stuff in my brain, but I've not read the book.
It's a very good story. Roman is a terrific writer and a very good speaker. He
Hmm.
can tell you a story once and it sticks in your head,
That's
and
cool.
you can read it and you think, wow, I wish I had thought of it that way. So his latest book, which I'm more than halfway through at the moment, is the one I referenced, and his purpose in that book is to dig up stories rather than case studies about things that happened in history that are lessons which could be used in improving the world and healing the planet today.
Hmm.
And
Is this How Should We Live, or which book is this?
where is it? Just
I'm
try.
I just have to update my good ancestor
Yeah,
link in my
right.
brain.
Let me just
Let's see,
find.
Kaznarek. Let me go find what you did. So Roman, there we go. You
Yeah,
have TED Talks
yeah.
History for
History
Tomorrow.
for tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
do not have History for Tomorrow in my brain yet, so I'm going to fix that right now.
it's a good read. It's not exactly a page turner, but if you had a long flight, you'd
Ah,
probably get through a lot of it.
okay.
Some of it is obvious where you say, yeah, of course, that's true. Some of it is, hey, how did he ever dig that example up? He's got examples going well back in history, and he's got examples up through the 50s, 60s, 70s of
Hmm.
last century. He's got them from all over the world. And to me, the way he's doing it is very inspirational. And it reminds me of what we talked about in earlier calls about did you know about the people in Portland? I forget their name, who were, yeah, what was their name? Uh, who, uh, did, at any rate, very inspiring people that
Hmm.
you knew of, and you tell the story, and you can reference it in a footnote, and it's there for people to discover. And
Hmm.
if it triggers you when you read it or hear it, you'll go to the hyperlink or the footnote or whatever form is being used and read more. And if it's presented in a compelling way, it might work 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 years later because it's
Yeah.
something that struck your imagination.
And this is also where all of this pulls or bleeds right into Neo books, um, and the idea of how do we share information better?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
History for Tomorrow, and it's not available in Kindle, which is too bad.
Oh, mm,
It's audiobook, hardcover, paperback, but no Kindle version to yet. So that
mm,
sort of sucks because I normally read almost
yeah,
exclusively on Kindle these days.
yeah, probably coming.
Yeah. Um,
Well, he does have some TED Talks about it. Another, I gave a link to, I think, one of the videos.
yeah.
He is actually talking about it.
Monbiot gives it a great review. George Monbiot.
Good for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So that to me is an example of what we could be either looking for if we want to ground things in actual examples, or what
Hmm.
we could be imagining in a what if world if we wanted to go that way, or if we wanted to mix them together with the proper labels. It's quite inspiring to think about it.
Hmm. Totally.
So I've been doing a lot of talking about how I saw this conversation, and I booked 4 conversations in your calendar. How this
Yep.
conversation and the next four might be going, but what are some of your ideas?
Um, so let me just go back to Upkido for a second. Um, I think I'm interested in some very simple starting place, like describing Upkido practices or um, Upkido principles, which takes me right into principles of design from trust. So that gets kind of deep pretty quickly. Um, but huh. um, Let me just refresh in my brain what I'm looking at. Keto. It would be fun. I mean, one thing that would kind of be fun, but it would get very messy very quickly, would be to find three or four other people who are enthusiastic about the Aikido idea and together to sort of figure out how to describe this thing in a many faceted way, right? And
Yeah.
then each of us could sort of contribute a chunk and then edit and remix one another's
Yeah.
chunks or something like
Yeah.
that. That would get us somewhere pretty rich pretty quickly. And then and then something like Aikido needs to have a little visual badge or a hand or a handshake or something, a little club membership thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the cool things with the Blog Brothers is that the gang sign for nerd criteria is this. So it's live long and prosper, cross both hands on your chest. This is the gang sign for nerd criteria. I don't know if they use it when they meet or whatever, but it's extremely cute because live long and prosper is a terrific thing that most people recognize.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is a very positive hand gesture, right?
Yeah.
So partly I'm thinking that declaring an intention to be like Upkedo is a thing I will want to propagate. Even just the mental exercise of saying, "Gosh, that sounds good. I'd like to try that." Doesn't mean everybody's going to be perfect about it. And the thing I just started writing, because the shortest phrase I have for Upkedo right now is "improve everything you touch."
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's my bumper sticker. But improve is a very dicey word there
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
could think I'm improving something when in fact I'm really making it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So that immediately takes me into some of the principles of design from trust because one of the principles is nothing about us without us, for example, which means don't
Yeah.
go try improving my world without bringing me into the design process.
Yeah.
Like don't even try, right? So there's something about keto where there are some practices, and I think this is neat for an early post about Upkido. There are some practices that are not controversial, like bringing a smile to somebody's face. So you're checking out at the grocery store, and often in daily interactions, I will elicit a smile on kind of on purpose, but kind of that's what my nature has sort of become. I'll crack a joke, I'll point something strange out, I'll whatever, but I'm trying to improve that little moment of touch that we have between us. That's, I think, pretty non-controversial and easy to do everywhere. Every now and then you're going to screw up and insult somebody, but boy, the threshold for that is very, very low.
Yeah.
If improving something means building a structure or changing a governance model or whatever else, that's way, way deeper. But it could be way, way interesting and way, way more powerful. It could affect many more people. So I think we need to find, is there a gradient? Is there a whatever? And then as I know that I'm getting toward the dicier part of the gradient, what principles can I apply and whom should I be asking for help to make sure that I do the right thing at that level? I mean, one of our mutual quests is what are the building blocks for a good future, right?
Yeah.
What are the next two stacks? I think that's a big, ambitious assignment. Um, but I think it's also really important. And I think that one of the practices of Aikido is to tell the stories of things that work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this ties together the stories we've been talking about, whether it's fictitious stories or mostly case studies, I think, of actual things in the real world. But sometimes it's about philosophical stories or settings or really well done fictitious futures. That's useful. Imagine a world in which blank is a fine start for a lot of interesting conversations. Imagine a world in which property ownership has been radically changed.
Yeah.
Imagine a world in which everybody cares about water and soil and that
Yeah.
they do everything possible to increase soil health and preserve
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
That
And
those are not real case. Well, a little bit they're real case studies because in the book, Water in the book about water in the West, The Big Thirst, the book The Big Thirst, which is a very good book. One of the
Oh,
chapters is about Las Vegas. And Las Vegas was running out of water. It's in the middle of the desert, for God's sake. There's like no normal water. And they were just running out of water. So the person in charge of water brought all the casino owners together and everybody else and said, tell me what you can do. And they said, we absolutely need the fiction of water needs to exist in Las Vegas. It needs to look like a verdant, wet, full of fountains kind of place. We are willing to do anything needed to keep that fiction going, which means the manager of the water district had their full cooperation to do gray water capture and reuse, to basically move water around intelligently, to change plants so that you weren't watering lawns or whatever, but you had less water usage for plants and other sort of stuff. But they needed the fiction of Vegas to look wet, not like desert,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a very interesting story to me.
It
That
is
that's
a
that's a success story of how they got dramatically better water policies going, but
yeah,
still made people happy in the environment.
yeah.
And I don't know how that's played out in the last couple of years because the book is a few years old. But
Very.
that's a kind of case study that I like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Uh, you talking about nerds fighting the world that sucks? I was Googling and there's all kinds of fighting nerd things. Do you have a reference to it to put in the chat?
Yes, nerds fighting world suck is the is the quote, and I would go to nerd. I would probably go to the nerd criteria entry in Wikipedia, which is this page, and I will excuse me, I'll paste it in our chat. Let's see. Shoot, it doesn't. Nerds Fighting World Suck is not does not go. Nerd fighters are all over Nerd Criteria,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Uh, and you, let me see. A film to decrease world suck. Nerd Fighters doc. The world sucks. Nerd Criteria wiki is good. How to be a nerd fighter. That's again Nerd Criteria wiki. That's probably a good secret project for awesome. The Urban Dictionary has an entry for world suck, which I will go to. But they also invented DFTBA, which is don't forget to be awesome. But I tell you, the nerd fighters are just genius. It just what they've built is just so good. The world sucks, help it suck less. So here's a page from the Nerd Criteria wiki, which looks pretty official. I'll paste that into our chat as well.
Okay. Now I'll check that out after the call.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
So last time we talked, you said that you thought you would be more effective if you had some kind of deadlines and people waiting for things.
Yes.
So that was one of the ideas that struck me of having four calls, weekly calls, and each one would be some kind of deadline. You still on that wavelength?
Yes, but the thing I need to do to make that work well is I need to match I need to match the things that would make interesting deadline items for this project against the deadlines for my other sort of project because I think they overlap a lot. But
Yeah,
I could easily see myself committing into stuff that doesn't feed the main line of what I'm doing, which is not clever for me at this point. I need to build assets that actually build everything
yeah,
else I'm trying to get done, which I don't think it's hard, but it means me sitting down and focusing on where are the points of overlap and how do those fit into the queue of things I want to create. Once I do that, then we can point to an item in the queue and say, great, let's do this one. We could even have a call on that topic of the deadline item and invite a couple people into the conversation, and then I can finish the item up after that.
yeah,
I can just do what shows up from the results of that call, and that's very motivating for me. I'd like that a lot. One thing I threatened myself to do a few months ago, when I stepped back from the Neo books and the other calls, was to create a daily call or every other day call that I would post online what the topic would be for each of the calls, and then
Yeah.
invite anybody interested in each of the topics to just show up and help me figure it out, hammer through it,
Yeah.
and make it better. But I did not do that.
Yeah. Well, let's look at one possible or one or two possible things for September. So I
Cool.
was triggered about what you were saying, describing Aikido and Upkido practices. Now, Aikido needs uh, centering, it needs ma, it needs kata. Uh, how would those type of things which you know from Aikido translate into Upkido? And thinking about, well, the first four or the first seven Upkido practices
Yeah.
described in ways that resonate with Aikido.
Interesting. One of the things I was thinking about as I was starting to write on Aikido was need to describe the metaphoric relationship to Aikido and all that makes total sense to do. But if we go a little bit deeper, the practices could be a little bit like Aikido techniques. And in Aikido, which is sort of ritualized, it's it's more theatric than real life because real life fights are very, very messy. And in
Yep,
Aikido, somebody's attacking you with a particular form of attack, of which there are a limited few. There aren't that
yep,
many kinds of attack in Aikido,
yep,
bizarrely. And then the techniques are ways to counter the attacks or absorb them or neutralize them or whatever. But also, one of the things that's really interesting is understanding pressure points on the body and things that you can do that cause a particular reaction or a particular response. Now, in Aikido, that's mostly neutralizing the opponent, but a lot of it is guiding the opponent's energy in a particular direction, right?
yep,
And I think that's really interesting. It's not just blending with your opponent, but it's actually blending them and leading them to where you need them to be
yep,
for the throw or pin. But in this case, it could be leading people to where they want to be to make society better,
yep,
right?
yep.
So
Yeah,
what things work well to do that? And um, the historical things are get an endorsement from a famous, singer or star. There's a bunch of historic techniques to try to get people to do something. I'm more interested in techniques about how to present ideas and
yeah,
to make them incredibly
yeah,
attractive and retellable and useful so that people will just bake them into their lives and then pass them on to everybody and make them contagious.
yeah,
For me, one of the key pressure point concepts in the design of an Upkido space is to make the ideas extremely contagious, but in a great way.
yeah,
I don't know if contagious is even the right word, but I like it because it means that, when I get close to it, it infects me. It takes over some part of my reasoning system, and then I pass it on to the next person that might be remotely interested.
yeah, 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 exactly.
And we talked, a couple decades ago was the birth of virality in the sense of viral social media and virality as a
Yeah,
marketing campaign. That was a big deal in the zero zeros or 90s or something like that, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And and it's still, without talking about it in those terms, extremely important.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to avoid the consumer mass marketing forms of getting attention. That would be maybe a principle that needs to get baked in. And I would want to head toward the things that I just talked about, like extreme usefulness,
Yeah,
simplicity in explanation, those kinds of things.
yeah,
And I'm afraid I have a call at the top of the hour. I'm sorry. But
yeah.
another one got booked right after us.
I thought I wouldn't be available for a call next week because we'd be taking a vacation in our own city in Amsterdam, cat sitting,
You
etc.
said yes.
And that's been postponed a week. Uh,
Ah,
so I could possibly uh, speak with you next week again if you want that. I'd have to look at your calendar and my own, but shall I
that
have
would
a look
work.
at it?
That would work.
Okay.
That would work. I'd like to do that. That'd be good. Because otherwise we don't talk until the ninth.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
you could take that same time slot a week earlier.
yeah.
That same time slot next Tuesday works for me.
Um,
The 10 a.m. Pacific, Tuesday the 2nd, which I guess is 7 p.m. your time,
yeah. Let me just check
Tuesday the
it.
2nd, or same time on Thursday or Friday if you want the 4th or 5th of September.
The Tuesday does work well for me, so it'd be Tuesday the second. Yeah, that works.
Cool.
Should I book it or on my?
Go ahead and book it, and
Yeah,
I will try in the meantime to sort out my queue so that it starts to adapt some of the things that we want to build here.
yeah, excellent. And I'll start thinking about Aikido and Upkido resonance. And if you do the same, then that might be a good topic for the next time. And maybe the time after that, we can invite some other people in
That
who
sounds
know
great.
something about that. Terrific. Great, Jerry. Good talking to you.
Thank you, Hank. Same here. A
Yeah.
lot.
Bye bye.
Ciao for now.